There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can now. There we go.
Danny Marang, what's going on, man? How you doing?
No, what's buddy? How you doing?
Hey,
You might hear the occasional puppy right now because they're. I had to give them both a little treat to keep them quiet because my wife's not home yet. So,
perfect. Sorry, doing the whole tweeting and all that good stuff since the
oh,
NBA season
dude,
is upon
yeah,
us. You got to do
you're
it,
you're
man.
totally fine.
Well, Danny Marang, Kings, Blazers coverage for SB Nation. I had to have you on the show, man. I listen to your show all the time. I'm a YouTube subscriber. Been a YouTube subscriber for a very long time. I love everything that you do. And when I finally got on with Sacktown Royalty, and I saw that the Kings versus the Blazers was going to be the home opener and everything like that, I was talking to Harrison. I was like, I gotta have this guy on the show. And so I'm so glad that I know I reached out last minute. I'm so glad to have you on, man. Thank you so much for coming back
Oh
on the show.
no, dude, totally fine. I mean, I work in radio, so everything's always last minute. I had, ironically enough, I had Katie Christensen on on my radio show this afternoon. So it's the Blazers Kings connections all day today.
Oh yeah, for sure. And with this Blazers Kings connection, I find that they are very much tied to each other this season. Mainly just due to the fact that
Yes.
everyone views them in this same bubble. Are both teams going to be in the play-in? Are any of these teams going to be making the playoffs? And I think with Sacramento, when I talk to fans, there's a lot of hope in this team. There's a lot of belief in this team. As an outsider that's looking at this roster, what's your perspective of this team?
So we were talking about this earlier today, and what's really interesting about framing this is that everybody's very down on Portland. Locally, even there's kind of like this like angst and like frustration of like where are they, what are they doing, and how dare they be in the play in. And then on the flip side in Sacramento, everybody's very excited and like, hey, they can really do it, and they're in the play in. And it's like it's two very different dichotomies, just like how things are being viewed by individual fan bases. And I can tell you this right now: the Kings and the Blazers are both better than the Lakers.
Especially after that last showing that was there. Oh my gosh, man. That must be that was so hard to watch. Like what was crazy too is you thought
Mm.
they were being competitive, but you knew at some point the Warriors are gonna
Oh
do
no.
that in the middle of the third
Yeah.
quarter, and then to just see them flip it on and they go up by 30, I believe, at one point. It
Yeah.
was it was
It
bad to
was
see.
never a game. That was the thing is the Warriors didn't even shoot that well.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the thing. It's like Steph at one point in time, I think he was like 2 for 11 from three. It wasn't
Those
even like
four
one of those
straight
things where
games.
like they were just killing it. Like they had to work through some kinks. That was the crazy thing. But I'm half joking, half serious. If their Lakers are as bad as I think, and I think they are that bad,
They are that
unless
bad.
unless they give in, which the tax for waiting might be more than they were willing to give up now. Um, the Lakers might be behind the Blazers and the Kings, and it might change how the play-in ends up being structured and kind of who it runs through and whether or not you tank after the deadline. And I mean, injuries obviously change everything, but I think all three teams are somewhere between 7 and 11.
Yeah, it's so hard for me to rule out the Lakers in anything, mainly just due to the fact that they have
They have
Anthony
LeBron.
Davis and they have LeBron James.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it's so hard for me to believe that that's gonna change at any
yeah.
time. You know what I mean? That they're not automatically booked into the playoffs. So but when I look at this Blazers team, like you said, there's two different sides of this. The Kings fans
Mhm.
seem to be very excited. There's a lot of hope that they're going to be in the play on. Like, yes, they're finally
On
going to
the
be in
way
the
up.
play in.
Yeah,
And the Blazers, like you said, everyone I talked to, they're like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be like, it's whatever. I mean, they're fine. I mean, Lillard's going to do
it,
Lillard things, but
yeah, it's a gap year, and that's the thing is I had Trailblazers GM Joe Cronin on my show on
I
Monday,
just watched it. Yep.
and one of the questions that I asked him was like, how do you justify the two different kind of timelines that are going on right now in Portland, which is Damian Lillard at 32 years old, Yusuf Nurkic at 28, Jeremy Grant 28, 29, 30. I can't even remember. I'm trying to keep all the edges straight. But then there's this group of guys. There's Anthony Simons at 23, Nasir Little at 21 or 22, Keon Johnson at 20, Shaden Sharp at 19, Trendon Watford at 20. Like you start like going down the list, and there's a split, and there's almost nobody on this team in their 25 to 29-year-old window like heading into their prime or smack dab in the middle of it, outside of Grant. And he called it reckless. He says he goes, I am aware that what we are doing is reckless because it is very hard to develop talent while being good.
Yeah.
And he kind of bookended that with, we haven't pushed all our chips in yet because the idea right now is to build around Damian Lillard and see what they can get. But they're also working with Chauncey Billups trying to figure out who can play their style and who can adjust. Can Damian Lillard defer a little bit more, be a little bit more off ball, play a little bit better defensively? Can Yusuf Nurkic play above the free throw line to play a more aggressive system? Does Josh Hart fit what they want as a three, or does he need to be on the bench, or does he need to be moved? Does Yusuf Nurkic need to be moved? Does Justice Winslow need to be moved? Does Nasir Little need to be moved? What kind of big should they go get? Like, does Grant and Lillard elevate them enough for them to really start chasing things? So there's all these questions about not necessarily them getting out into the playoffs or out of the play-in. Like, they've seen what Damian Lillard can do.
Yeah.
But you contrast that to the Kings. They haven't seen what any of these guys can do.
Yeah, I mean,
they
kind of have this belief in what they think they could be.
Yeah,
but it's not. Yes, these are going to be the guys. Like I was saying at the top of the show, it's like this. I feel for this season, there's no pressure on Mike Brown really to other than just keep developing this team. I don't even
also elevate the vibes,
right,
which he's already doing.
Right. And then with Monty McNair, I'm surprised he hasn't got the extension yet, but I feel there's no real pressure on him. I feel like he's built this team to already be better by just acquiring Mike Brown and the pieces that he did with Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk and the decisions that he made by going and drafting Keegan Murray. And a lot of people were split on that, but after seeing him play, I feel like it's already elevated him. So I feel like there's no pressure on him. The only person that I feel has pressure on their shoulders for this season is De'Aaron Fox. I feel there's a ton of pressures on his shoulders just to decide whether or not are you a franchise player or are you not a franchise player? Are you a building block or not? And I've been contemplating this for a while now throughout this entire offseason is, did the Kings bring in an all-star in Domantas Sabonis to be the Robin to a De'Aaron Fox? Or did they bring a all-star in Domantas Sabonis to start leading this franchise down a new path into being successful and being the guy for this team? And I think there's a split between most people that cover this Kings team closely. I think fans still really believe it's Fox. But I think Sabonis, there's an argument to be made that he is the guy. He's the most consistent guy. When you view this team, who do you think the guy is for this team?
It's funny. I asked Katie Christensen today, is it fair to say that if this year doesn't go the way it needs to for De'Aaron, like he develops as a shooter, is able to start the season well, because he closes seasons typically very well, but it's a slow ramp up. It's a slow kind of up. Does his shooting maintain? Does his relationship Sabonis keep going? Is it fair to say that his time in Sacramento is done? I had Deuce Mason on my show last week, and I kind of asked him the same thing. Like, and like you said, the people that cover the team genuinely kind of see this is kind of Fox's last chance.
This is.
And not necessarily a bad thing, like he's a bad player, but sometimes you got to pivot. And I tell you what, if they go that way and they made that decision and they gave up on Hallie that quickly to go get Sabonis and side with Fox, you can't dwell on it, but that's a punch in the nuts. Like, that's just,
there were opportunities out there. Like, was Donovan Mitchell a real thing if you give up Fox in pieces? You missed out on that. You
gave up a rookie scale contract.
What was that?
You gave up a rookie scale contract.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, that's how you build in this league. If you're a small market, you have to capitalize on rookie scale deals.
The only counter to that is the Kings still have to believe that Fox is the guy. And
yes, 100%.
This was a great trade. Like I said it when it happened is I'm okay with the Kings making the decision to move off of Tyrese Halliburton. There's no guarantee Tyrese Halliburton turns into the all-star that you were getting back in Domantas Sabonis. You sold high on a nice player to get a really good return, a solid big man in the NBA who can do a little bit of everything. We're going to see him do a lot in tonight's game against
He will probably
team.
Cook Portland.
Oh yeah, he's had some good matchups against Portland. So
I'll tell you a quick little anecdote about Sabonis. Last season, I was coming out of the media room, and I turned over my shoulder to say something to somebody else. And if for those who've never been to Moda Center, you have to kind of go around the corner and then past the media room to go through the away team kind of uh, tunnel to get onto the floor. And I turned around, I ran smack into Sabas's chest. I mean, just split him right down the middle, just boom. And I bounced off him like a freaking bug hitting a windshield. And for those that don't know, I'm 5'10, 275. I'm a very large, short, stocky plug of a dude. And I bounced off of him.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy crap, this dude is strong. And I remember watching him that night, just like having a better understanding for his strength, and I was like, yeah, he gets that from his dad. Like but it was just this thing. It was just like I've been around the league for a decade, and there's certain guys, him, Steven Adams, a couple others that I've kind of just looked at. DeAndre Ayton is the most recent one that I've kind of like, no, these are different
he's
strength
yoked.
level dudes.
Yeah.
But Sabas, man, he's so much fun, but he is so strong and so solid. I mean, I got the leverage on him. He didn't budge. He did nothing, man. I was like,
Your story
he must
reminds me
have
of
seen
that
me
Chad
coming.
Ochocinco where he's like running. He's like,
Oh, Ray Lewis, yeah.
Ray Lewis.
Got to stay away from those big guys. You got to stay away from those big guys. I think he saw me coming and braced it and kind of like leaned into it a little bit. That's how I justify it in my head.
You have to.
Because otherwise, I just bounced off him like I was nothing.
You know, if I saw a 5'10", 270 guy come, I gotta stiff up a little bit.
Gotta lean into it a little bit.
Exactly. You gotta put that Ray Lewis tuck into it, you know? Looking at this game and previewing this game, Danny, because I personally think it is Sabonis, speaking of him, as the X factor for the Kings. Now, a key to the game is the three keys I have is defense, defense, and defense. I think that's the only thing that really matters for the Kings in showcasing is their defense. Win or lose, in order to win, it's going to be defense. To show improvement, we need to see it defensively. And for this Kings team to take the next step, it all comes down to their defense. So I say the key to the game is defense, defense, defense. But the X factor player in this game is Domantas Sabonis. I feel like matchup wise, the Kings are losing at point guard when you look at Damian Lillard versus Fox. I think Anthony Simons versus whoever the Kings put there at that 2 spot has not been solidified yet. If it's going to be Herter, Monk, or Davion Mitchell, I think it's kind of a coin toss there. I think the battle between Barnes and Nazir Little is very interesting. I do give it slightly to Barnes, but
you can go ahead and give it to him. They're going to start hard. They're going to start hard at the 3, and even then, I'm going to give it to HB. I'd give that nod to HB. I think he's a perfect player and he's a guy who's historically given Portland fits.
Yeah.
Some of his best games during the regular season have come against Portland, no matter who he's played for.
Yeah, but for me, like I said, I think the X factor is that matchup between Sabonis and Nurkic, because Sabonis positionally he's a pretty good defender, but I will never be someone that comes over and says, oh, he's a lockdown defender, he's gonna stop anybody. I think Nurkic is a very crafty offensive player in terms of just the nice little handoffs, his footwork down the post. He's a sneaky good mid-range shooter. So I feel like he's a pretty good basketball player. Not the best, but he's someone that can get going quickly. But I still think the edge goes to Sabonis, and I think if the Kings are needing to win, he needs to get you a double-double with 5 assists. But what do you think about this game? Who's your X factor, and what's your keys to victory for the Blazers?
I'm just kind of going through it. Like, Nurk has looked terrible in the preseason. He's not in shape, which is kind of insane considering he played for Bosnia in FIBA. It's been a point of contention. He's been a basket case to start the season. And the interesting thing about this is Nurkic's best career game is against the Kings. I'm sure Kings fans remember the 2020 5x5 where he absolutely beat the living hell out of the Kings. It was one of the most ridiculous games I've ever seen. But he also can foul out in 12 minutes or 16 minutes like he did in the preseason. Like he is I want to give credit to Locked On Blazers host Mike Richmond. He had somebody on his show who coined Nurkic getting foul momentum. He will get one foul and then he will compound it with 2 very stupid fouls immediately following it. He's a raw emotional player, and it can be great when he's riding on the highs, but when he is riding on the lows, it is like a junkie. It's hard to watch. You want to look away or scream at him. What are you doing? You know better.
Yeah. I really thought the Blazers were going to move on from him this offseason. I thought that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, well, they had to if they were they explored some things around Aiton and Miles Turner, but they couldn't find a financial deal because of the way they were going to work everything with particular contracts that it was going to fit right under with bringing Jeremy Grant in into the TPE.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Dame's always going to win that matchup. I think Anthony, if he's the kind of guy where he's capable of dropping 40. That's the
Yes.
terrifying thing for people. For people not familiar with Anthony Simons, he is a guy that can quite literally take over an entire quarter and drop 25 on you in a quarter. In his 4 previous years, where he has very limited playing time, the times where he was allowed to get going, he has scored over 20 and a quarter. I think it's 6 times. And if you
Wow.
look at his actual starts and opportunities to do that, they're pretty limited. There's a reason why they gave him $25 million a year. Is because he is a scorer and he's probably one of the 5 best shooters in the NBA. For
Wow.
Portland, though, it's not about their offense. I have faith that they will figure that out, even if they start out slow, and that's the expectation is that Portland is going to start out slow. Their own GM said as much. But in the first matchup, one thing the Blazers did against the Kings was they went under everything. Every screen action, they went under. Every single one of them. Hard drop from Yusuf Nurkic, which was a pretty staunch change from their first preseason game against the Clippers up in Seattle. I'm wondering how much of that was Chauncey trying to simplify things versus something they're trying to employ tonight against the Kings. It'll be interesting to see how exactly that plays out, what they try to do, because there's this balance they're trying to strike right now defensively between being aggressive and being safe.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. Sorry, I've got 2 puppies next to me that are
It's all
both
good.
being a complete ruckus. But trying to strike that balance of where they end up falling on that defensive scale with their aggressiveness versus their passiveness. And I think ultimately I'm not necessarily looking at one individual player. I'm looking more at scheme and how effective they are at operating within it, because in the preseason, they have been a steaming pile of dog do. It has been tremendously bad in the preseason. And for all of you can't take that much from preseason. You can take the fact that Yusuf Nurkic has been out of shape. You can take the fact that they have been lost in their schemes and very simple stuff. You can take the fact that they did a great job at corralling and collapsing in the paint, but the second, third, and fourth adjustments defensively they broke down on. Those are the things that I looked at and went, "Oh boy, this is going to be a long year."
Yeah. I that's my big question with this team too. Like I was surprised that I saw that the Kings spread got up to as high as 4 points. It's kind of settled at 3, but it was a pick 'em all the way up until they played each other. What was it, like a week ago in the preseason?
Mm-hmm.
My thing is like if the jump shots aren't falling for the Blazers, what are they going to next? Because I feel like it's going to be definitely a jump shot heavy team,
Mm-hmm.
and then with a lot of Jeremy Grant slashes to the basket. And can Jeremy Grant still be that guy? And that's
Mm-hmm.
my next question to you is, there was rumblings and reports that, Jeremy Grant and Damian Lillard's friendship was like a real reason why that they wanted to go after Jeremy Grant. How serious of that is true? And what do you expect
That
Jeremy
deal's
Grant's
been
role
done
to
for
be
a
on this
while.
team? Was-
That deal's been done for a while. Yeah.
oh yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
There is a reason why there were a lot of Pistons fans that were very mad at me because they thought they were getting the Blazers #7 pick in the lottery, and I was like, no, no, they're not. They're getting the Milwaukee Bucks. The one thing I wasn't sure was like, is it going to cost the Milwaukee Bucks pick and Keon Johnson? That was like, do they require that other piece? But yes, no, it was a friendship that was forged at the Olympics last year,
Yeah,
and it was much like Kevin Durant to the Warriors. Steph and Andre recruited him for literal years, and when it became an option for him, boom, they went. And the relationships that happen at these Olympic camps and these national tournament camps, that's where these guys all get together. That's where these super teams end up getting formed.
yeah,
Bosch and Love ending up in. I'm saying Bosch and LeBron ending up in Miami. That's the Banana Boat crew. That's where it was formed. Was
yeah.
the Olympics.
Yeah,
And
that
so,
Wake
yeah,
Forest book
that's
talking all about how they talk to each other is
mhm.
very like if you guys don't read like these sports books that come out, I highly recommend you do. Like the inside the
They
locker room
chronicle
stuff
it.
that comes out,
Yep.
they're very informative, and I love reading those stuff. Brian
Oh
Windhorst
no, it
stuff is
gives you
amazing.
all the background behind everything is fantastic.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but the thing is, he's the best addition to this Blazers roster since LaMarcus Aldridge left, and it's not particularly close. They have not they have not had an all-star caliber player alongside Damian Lillard since LaMarcus left. If you think about how successful the Blazers have been they've done it on the shoulders of Damian Lillard. CJ McCollum's a fine player, but he's not an all-star. He didn't paper over or cover up anything that Damian Lillard couldn't do. He kind of helped nail it down a little bit more. That was about it. They had some functional role players. The reason Yusuf Nurkic has been successful in Portland is that he works very well and effectively in the screen and roll. Well, Damian Lillard's one of, if not the best pick and roll scorer in NBA history. You look at him, he averages a point or over a point per possession in the pick and roll, which is obscene. That's why he was like, well, you want to see Dame work off ball. Why? Why do you want to see Damian Lillard work off ball?
Who says that? No one should say that. That's
Oh,
crazy.
people say that here in Portland all the time. They want him to be like Steph. Well, if he was like Steph, he would be like Steph. He would work more off ball.
Steph is so different, and he's such a different player. Damian Lillard is a scoring bucket that's willing to pass.
Yes.
Like that's the difference. Like if I had to compare Damian Lillard to anyone, like in terms of he's someone 2.0 or 5.0 even is, and this you're gonna kind of laugh at this, but I feel like he's everything John Wall wish he could have been. Like he can have the ball in his hands, find I feel like Damian Lillard's a really good passer, but he's the
Dame's a fantastic and a very willing passer. That's the thing is like John can't shoot. Like he never has, he never will. Like it's just not a part of his game. Dame is a walking bucket, but the thing is he wants to pass.
Yes,
he's a very willing passer. CJ was not, and that's where kind of you saw like CJ would cook when Dame wasn't on the floor. And that's honestly the hope for the Blazers right now is that Anthony can be more like Dame and be a willing passer to facilitate a more motion-based offense. And I get part of the idea of wanting Dame to work off ball a little bit because you change the eyes of the defense if Dame's coming off pin downs and off screens where they're coming from behind the defense. Like that, I get that. But fundamentally taking the ball out of his hands is one of those things I just kind of scratch my head about.
But Fox out here, people want to see like
yes,
like I want to see Fox slashing when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. But I don't need like with that Halliburton. The reason why it didn't work is because Fox needed the ball in his hands, and the Kings were transitioning the ball to Halliburton, and I can see why that's messing up. When you put the ball back in Fox's hands, he's averaging 25, 5, and 5. But is it in wins? And like the pick and roll, like we're gonna see a lot of pick and roll from both of these teams tonight. And the Austin and the Fox were one of the best pick and roll teams last season when they finally got together. And then to see what Damian Lillard can do, both being as a driver and as a finisher, and I think he showed so much energy in this preseason, whether it was good or not as a team, he looked good in my eyes, and just in terms of being back to being Damian Lillard. And I find that to be so, interesting to see how he showcases that in his revenge year. You know what I mean? But, Danny, I don't want to keep you here too much longer, but what's your prediction for this game? What do you want to see from the Blazers? What do you expect to see from them? And also, final score, anything else that you want to talk about this game?
I honestly, I think the Kings are going to win this because I think the Blazers are probably another month away from being like remotely effective defensively. They're not going to fix the problems that they've had. The only way Portland really, I think, gets going tonight is if they get their offense on track, which, again, when you've got a lineup featuring Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant, that can happen pretty much any given night. But I would imagine this ends up being probably like the first two games we had yesterday were high scoring. I would imagine early on defenses aren't going to look good. Probably going to be like a 116, 111 kind of game. That's what that's kind of the place I imagine. I wouldn't surprise me at all if Portland ends up being a top 5 offense and that the Kings are right there alongside with them. I think both teams for the keys to them for their seasons is how good they can be defensively and not even how good, how consistent they can be defensively. Because some nights you may not have it, and other nights you get bailed out by your shot making. But for me, watching the other side of this, I'm interested to see can De'Aaron Fox continue to shoot the ball. Because I'll be honest, I kind of, in a weird, sick way, I kind of pull for the Kings because 16 years is too damn long. I just watched the Mariners get back to the playoffs after 21 years, and we got a lot of Mariners fans up here in Portland. And even though they got swept, the joy they had for being back then there would be cool. Also, it'd be really cool if the Kings fans got to enjoy a play-in, and it would be such a better way than the Timberwolves did it. The Timberwolves just the way that they did it last year really bothered me. So I want to see the Kings, just have a little bit of class when they get back and then go crazy.
Yeah, I felt like the Timberwolves were like, oh, we were supposed to be here. Like this was like
it's a little too much for the worst winning franchise in history.
They had like this Memphis Grizzlies swagger about them for making just that. I was like, where did this come from? Like I got the Grizzlies swag. They came out with energy. They were high flying. That team is fun.
$1 million swagger thrift shop, clothes, man. That's
Exactly.
that's what the Timberwolves wore, and it bothered the hell out of me. Mostly because it was Pat Beverly.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm with you. I think the Kings do pull out a victory here. I think it's actually going to be, like you said, I have it more like 110, 105. I think it's going to be a very tight game. It comes down to the shooting. I think both teams may start off kind of slow, and it'll just be who gets their jump shot going first. I think the Kings are going to be playing from behind early. There's just something about this type of game, and when there's pressure on, I always believe that Damian Lillard shows up. And I think that jump shot's going to be there. Let me ask you this, though. Over under 25 points for Dame tonight.
I took my non-solicited gambling advice, and I may have parlayed a group of overs on Jeremy Grant, Damian Lillard, and Anthony Simons tonight. So
Yeah.
I think Dame wants to put a statement. He did come out and practice after practice the other day and said. Basically a level of, listen, I played 30 games last year with my abdomen detached from my pubic bone, and I averaged 25-7. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. In other words, he's about that life.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, there's something about I don't care. I don't care about anybody says.
Yeah.
You can talk about, oh, Dame's been out, blah blah blah. He's alone. Like, this man is still a bucket. I was talking about that at the beginning of the show. I was like, y'all can't forget the wave, not once but twice. On top of that, you know what time it is. He's dropping dimes in commercials as a baby. This guy is good. I think David.
He's gonna want to make a statement tonight. So he typically slow rolls. If he comes out first 5 possessions and he pulls from 30 feet just to show what's up, wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
I will say this though. Seatbelt off night. He could be there. Seatbelt off night.
Listen, I expect to see Davion actually get a little bit of time on Dame, but I think they're going to want to put him on Anthony a little bit because that'll be interesting
on the starting lineup. But I'll tell you this is no inside source or anything like that. Just my prediction. I think the Kings are going to start Davion Mitchell tonight with Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, and Domantas Sabonis, all obviously with Fox.
Interesting. So they're going to go a little bit smaller. Okay.
A little bit smaller. I think it's to match up with what I believe the Blazers are going to do. And
the guard scoring pair between Dame and Ant. It makes sense. Having Davion on the floor to kind of snuff one of them out or at least be bothersome would be a good way to go.
And then to just put the ball completely in Monk's hands. I think that just makes the most sense, especially since you don't really have Huerter to get all of your scoring out there. So if Dame does go on a run, you can at least match it with more than just the.
You can lean on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
So both of us say it here, guys. We think the Kings are going to win. I think it's going to be close. I mean, defense, it might just be an offensive fun game. I think we're definitely going to see a lot. Let's
hope we don't get a broken game. I just want it to be fun tonight.
Yeah.
I got to cover 82 of these things. Don't make it a crappy game.
Danny Marang of the Jack Ramsey podcast. Go, you guys, if you haven't done so already, go subscribe to his show. So many great guests. He just had the GM of the team on his show. Wow. On the same day, they extend Nazir Little. I thought that was
good timing.
Huh?
It was good timing.
It was great timing. Great timing, man. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this before I go, just because I did so many shows on him during the off season. What's been the early reporting on Shaedon Sharpe? The mystery of Shaedon Sharpe.
He's a freak. He's a freak. Everybody's very excited about him. His athletic tools are very, very, very well thought of right now. I don't think he's going to get a ton of time. No, he's just a year away. He's just a year away. It's just he played against the Israeli team that came in preseason, Maccabi Ra'anana, and he went nuts. Those are the clips that went viral that night. And I talked to him after the game, and I said, "Was it that alley-oop that got you going?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's when I knew I belonged." And he just needs one play a night for him to mentally kind of like, "Oh, that's right. I can not only play with these guys, like I'm that dude." And then you see his confidence skyrocket. He's 19, didn't play college. He's just trying to find his way and trying to find the pecking order. He's so talented that when it does come together for him, you kind of sit back and get wide-eyed like, oh, he's one of those. He's one of the special ones. If he puts it together, he has a chance to be a transcendent player, and I don't use that lightly.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, no, for sure. I find him to be such a mystery. I find him to be such an intriguing player that I cannot wait to see what he becomes. I'm rooting up for the best.
There's some stuff there.
Oh, there's for sure stuff there. You can just see it. You know what I mean? But it's just more of the question marks that built him into the draft. I again, there's a lot of mystery. I got talking to, Rafael Barlow and his scouting of him. I thought it was just very intriguing. I mean, you guys can go watch that show back one more time if you guys ever want to go hear that whole story. But Danny, I want to thank you so much for coming here on the show. And before I let you go,
man.
Where can the fans find you online? Obviously, the Jack Ramsey show, but where else can they find you online? What can they be expecting from you this season?
Yeah, no, you can find me on Twitter at Danny Marang, at DANNYMARANG. And you can find, obviously, at Jack Ramsey's. If you're in the Portland metro area or surrounding areas, you can find me on 1080 The Fan from noon to 3 every day with my co-host, Dusty Hera. We're putting out, my co-host for the podcast, Brandon Sprague, and I are putting out shows as often as we can. We are doing live watch parties. Well, if you're a Kings or a Blazers fan, you can come tonight. I'll have a link up on Twitter here shortly for a live watch party that we do all season long for all of the away games, for a couple of home games. If there are ones that I can't make, which don't think is going to happen, but we'll have those covered. We'll have at least 41 different watch parties through Watch Playback this year.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool to hear about the League Pass allowing people to do that. And if you're a League Pass member, look out for his links. And once I see you do it, you can be the little test dummy for me to let me know how good it goes. Maybe we can start doing those things over here on the Kings Court. But you guys go give him a follow. Danny Marang on Twitter, Jack Ramsey on YouTube, iTunes, or anywhere you guys get your podcast. You guys go give this man a follow. I've been your host today. My name is Vince Miracle. You guys can follow me on all social media platforms of @VM Center. This show is sponsored by RateCrushers.com. If you guys are looking for any type of insurance, these guys got you covered in crushing the rates up to 35%. The show is brought to you by Sacktown Royalty. You guys go check them out for all of your latest Kings news. And until next time, Sacramento Kings fans, which is going to be a post-game show following this game.